Me on There is no stigma, no shame. আশা করি সব ভালো আছেন। আজ আমরা টপিক হইল autism লইয়া। এপ্রিল মাস হইল autism awareness month। এর মানে না যে আমরা জাস্ট খালি এপ্রিল মান্থ আমরা autism রে বুঝতাম জানতাম, বাট আমরা ট্রাই করতাম যে আমরা অলওয়েজ aware থাকতাম যে আমরা খাসাতো মানুষ আছেন, মেবি তারার autism আছে, মেবি তারার ফ্যামিলি মেম্বার কেউ আছে, বাচ্চাইনও আছেন। সো আমরা অলওয়েজ একটা awareness বিল্ড থাকতো আমরার life or maze. So just khali April mash the awareness month and manina is just this month, but we should try to keep that awareness amongst us. So amrar community maze autism re bustafarinna. তারা early signs কিতা আমরা কিলা recognize করতাম পারমু, হয়ে গেলে আমরা সাহায্য পাইমু, এটা আমরা আসলে বুঝতামও পারি না, আমরা জানতামও পারি না, because autism একটা it's not that নয়া বেমার, but what it is একটা মানুষে এখন বুঝরা, এখন জানরা, এগুলো diagnosis is easily available, plus মানুষে সাইন্সও দেখরা, একটার trait কিতা বুঝরা। সো এটা আমরা দেখতাম পারি যে এখন একটা কমন থিম আছে যে মানুষে autism বুঝতা পাররা। একটা না যে আখতা যে আমরা মেবি মানুষে কইবাও আমরা খানির মাঝে কিছু আছে বা আমরা বাতাসের মাঝে কিছু আছে, ও তার দায় এখন বেশি autism বাড়ি গেছে। ইটস নট, সব সময় আমরার মাঝে আসিল, বাট আমরা রেকগনাইজ করতাম পারছি না, সায়েন্টিফিকলিও রেকগনাইজ করতাম পারছি না, personally, emotionally আমরা recognize করতাম পারছি না। বা এখন আমরা we're more educated in autism, so আমরা বুঝতাম পারলাম এটা সাইনান। But however, আমরা community মাঝে আবো একটু lack of understanding রইছে আবো। Maybe আমরা নিজের মাঝে দরকার হইতো না পারে, maybe আমরা fortunate that আমরা ফ্যামিলির মাঝে হোক, আমরা relatives এর মাঝে হোক, কেউর ইলান নাই। But আইতে পারে in the future, maybe আমরা এখনো সাইন বুঝতাম না, but in the future আমরা সাইন দেখতাম পারি, বুঝতাম পারি। সো আমরা কিলা একজনে আরেকজনরে সাপোর্ট করতাম পারমু। আমার লগে আইজ আছেন একজন গেস্ট, তান অনেক এক্সপিরিয়েন্স আছে autism লইয়া, বাট আমরা তান লগে মাতবার আগে আমরা একটা ছোট ইন্ট্রো ব্রেক ফরে আইমু, আইয়া বাদে তান লগে আমরা মাতিমু। প্লিজ bear with me.
সকাল দুপুর সন্ধ্যা রাতে তোমার আমার কথা হবে রিল্যাক্স রেডিও বাংলায়, রিল্যাক্স রেডিও বাংলা,
রিল্যাক্স রেডিও বাংলা, সারাদিন সারাক্ষণ।
রেডিও বাংলা, ফ্রিকোয়েন্সিস।
Welcome back, viewers. So আইজ আমার গেস্ট হইলা আব্দুল মুকিত ভাই। সালাম ভাইয়া, আপনি ভালো আছেন নি?
Can you hear me? Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, I can hear you. How are you? ভালো আছেন নি?
Alhamdulillah, very well. Very well. On school holidays at the moment, so couldn't be any better.
Better, of course. And Ruzama show, obviously, that's the best thing, I think, the holidays, isn't it? It just gives us a bit of space to breathe, right?
Absolutely. That's correct. Thank you.
Okay, so, but yeah, after tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us an intro.
Certainly. So I'm an assistant head teacher in inclusion. I'm a responsibility to inclusion and safeguarding. Inclusion under for a special educational needs. আমার qualification হইল গিয়া আমার Senko Zeta experience for over 15 years. এখন and I've currently Redbridge School এর চাকরি করি। স্কুলের মাঝে রিসেন্টলি আমরা একটা additional resource provision add করছি, যেটাই আমরা children রে with autism, social communication difficulties এরা আসুন, এরা help এরা লাগি specialized curriculum থাকে, specialized surroundings and approach.
Okay, so amra jara viewer asen tarare just in short basically buzaite hole you're the expert in SEND, which is special educational needs, and autism falls under special educational needs. So after shob school maze to Senko tahoin, so afne oila Senko for your school, and you've got 15 years of experience, so that's a lot of experience. You've probably seen the wide range of changes the 15 years ago kila asiler ehon kila hoise. You obviously will go into that in a bit more detail a bit later, but wow, you've got a lot of experience there.
Thank you. I wouldn't say I'm an expert. I'm everyday here because spectrum autism that it is a spectrum which is very wide, and every child is very unique. So experience that development is very different. So I'm learning every day as well.
Every day, of course, and the science and diagnosis is as such. Medicine is always changing, developing. So obviously, loge amrao hika lager, especially in the education background, you're always constantly nize develop kora lager, hika lager. There's no stop in that sense. And like you said, autism is a very big and broad subject. But we can give people like small ideas and small input of our experiences and knowledge, and maybe tara o suto ekta জিনিস নিয়া they can research it and develop it into their own thing. So what is autism? So autism kita, so Zara Zandrana, what would you say is autism from your point of view? Obviously, we're not saying that this is the definition of autism, but from your point of view, what is autism?
Autism হইল গিয়া আপনারা বুঝাই এটা একটা বাচ্চান্তর মাঝে না অ্যাডাল্টস মাঝেও আছে একটা ডিসেবিলিটি দেখায় ব্রেইনের ফাংশন রে ডিফারেন্টলি ওয়ার্ড আপ থাকে বুঝছেন একটা মানি নাই যেন এজনের যেন ডিফিসিয়েন্সি আছে necessarily, but এখন সময় থাকে autism মাঝে প্রায় বাচ্চান্তর ও অ্যাডাল্টসের মাঝে enhancement has in certain areas as well. So it's very broad. এখন সময় হুনা যায় terminology Asperger's sector. Outer one under for umbrella under for it. So autism definitely এখন সময় হুনবা আপনি ASD or autism spectrum disorder. Outer terminology as the bodlere honik terehoi ASC. You may see that more currently, which is autism spectrum condition. Kind of disorder at a negative terminology.
Negative term, of course.
Yeah. So language developer, like you said earlier, understanding or developer constantly medical side, as well as the practical side of things as well. So the base in a nutshell, the individual's brain is wired up differently. Differently. Often they have sensory needs. They can sensory need or maze hoite pare jene smell lagi hyper sensitivity, taste lagi hypersensitivity থাকতে পারে, touch lagi hypersensitivity থাকতে পারে। যেন খুব বেশি কোনো বাচ্চা আছে দেখো আপনি কোনো ফুড নানি বালা পায় না ও কালার বালা পায় না, ফুডের কালার বালা পায় না, so quite complicated হয়ে যায় কি। And your এর মাঝে আছে আপনি কোনো সাউন্ড বাচ্চা দেখলে your করে সাউন্ড শুনলে
sound balafina,
distress system তারা আপসেট করে তো খানো দরিয়া ইও করব তারা চাইবো।
But দেখা যায় তো রাস্তাঘাটের মাঝেও দেখা যায় like হুরুতায় ওটা air what do they call them?
Air
It's like
defenders,
earmuffs, but they block out the sound, isn't it? The manche the drill in there or tara. So that's probably a sign that that person is maybe autistic.
Definitely. Certain sounds I say maybe a sound of a horn or out in the community, and they ase khewzure dakhde bachara distress kore ekta to distress amra toklu we get distressed to some extent, regulate korte pare tara oi sekita regulation necessarily korte pare na, so tara meltdown hoite pare or really find it difficult and take a long time to calm down. So that's pretty much what it is. Communication is difficulty so not all, but communication because they may be limited, and communication is very echolalic মানে আপনি যেখান কইব একটা রিপিট করব।
Yeah, they store information a lot as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
so information that's not needed they'll store like forever, right?
But that's their interest. That are interest they can be mathematical geniuses, they can be very artistic, they can have a massive word bank. Kind of that are interest I've worked with children who, as one child recently, bless him, he knew every single word for every single Michael Jackson song, and he would read it out. He would recite it as though he wouldn't sing it. He was just almost reading out from a script. So that was amazing. Yeah, no, they're amazing people. Children with autism. So so communication আছে না আরেকটা আছে social interaction so তারা socially interactions একটা করে না নিয়ে একজন মিলামিলি করেন একটা difficult এক সময় পায় they find it hard to make eye contact and soke saya যেন আসলে মাতিতো
মাত্রিত
একটা difficult হয় তারা লাগে এক সময় intimidating থাকে তারা লাগে মারতে পারবো communicate করতে পারবো বাচ্চায় যারা মা বাবা আসেন but সব সময় না যেন মাথা আমরা verbally যে একটা মুক্তি মাতি আমরা অন্য ফটো কাইন লাগবো because communication যেটা আমরা করি না নি আমরা only 30% হইল কি verbally 70% হইল কি আমরা facial expressions body language so we need to take advantage of some of that there's I mean I can answer it now or later on talk about there's lots of different ways of communicating with children but on hole আছে central lage mata
if we're talking about emotional needs, not just communication, we also find that well, in my experience, that I found that autistic children তারা emotional একটা আমরার মাঝে what do you call it awareness আছে awareness নাই so আমরা যদি একটা দুঃখ পাই আমরা খান্দিমু বা আরো জনে যদি দেখি they hurt আমরা দুঃখ লাগবো তারা লাগি বাট তারার emotional attachment ঠিকটা থাকে না
no definitely again individually depend করে খেওরার কোনো বাচ্চার আছে very high pain threshold বুঝছেন নি so এরা দুঃখ পাইলে না নি আমরা ইলা তারা জেলা দুঃখ পাইলা এদের উঠিয়া আটা ধরবো বুঝতো না হইতো না because there are pain thresholds একটা again it goes back to the sensory needs the physical touch একটা না নি sensory need দ্বারাই তারা তারা pain threshold often very high থাকে not all children and when we're talking about emotional as in the feeling side again tara they can express because language communication difficulty থাকে তারা express করতে পারে না সব সময় wants and needs যেটুকু express করতে পারে না
children are non-verbal as well
Some
so there's
can be.
different spectrums isn't it so spectrums একটা maybe আমরা বাংলা ভাষায় ওখান কইতাম পারমু যে level is probably the closest thing to spectrum দেখেও আছে বেশি মাতিব বেশি information store করব like genius type আর কেউ আছে যে absolutely non-verbal যে মুঠো communicate করতে পারতো না but they are both autistic
yes
they
and
fall
again
under the same umbrella
definitely both autistic and again needs are very different communication needs are there but different থাকে কেউ লাগে আসে না নিজের একবারে মাথা ধরে না non-verbal or pre-verbal থাকে এরা লাগি we have things like speech and language programs such as PECS থাকে picture exchange communication boards era যারা মা বাবা সইন বাচ্চাইন আলা on non-verbal they will know this because there's a big push on encouraging parents to encourage for it to use korba lagi because yes we use these at school it's also important that parents also go to use koroin
continue the same kind of communication style at home as well
definitely
okay
এর সময় কি আমরা language দিয়ে overwhelm করে দিতাম পারি বাচ্চাইন ধরে so এরা যারা children with autism এরা লগে আমরা we have to be very brief with them very clear with them আর এক সময় আসে না এই বাচ্চা লগে মারতে হইলে আপনি বাচ্চার নাম লওয়া লাগবে পয়লা I mean this is even more so in schools because there are 30 children in a classroom so if you say sorry so if you say Abdul come over here then I hear my name first and I will go over there if you say come over here Abdul I'm just hearing Abdul I'm not hearing come over here if that makes sense so আমার নাম যেটুকু শুনমু এটুকু আমি respond করমু my alertness will go up I'm listening out to what instructions you're giving me so small things like that আমরা যদি বাচ্চার নাম ফয়লা লইয়া বা দেখো whatever the বাচ্চার নাম for Abdul for argument's sake Abdul তুমি বাদ দিয়াও or come over here then নাম ফয়লা হইলে একটা খামায় নাম পরে হইলে because message is lost তারা শুনেন না until you've said their name
okay and then they're kind of looking at you that kita hoiso you know like you know because they've only responded to their name right they've lost the other message
and as parents and caregivers আমরা এখন সময় frustrated হয়ে যায় গিয়া upset হয়ে যায় গিয়া কথা শুনে না কথা মানেন না যে করেন না but actually these small little adjustments because আমরা আপনি যখন introduction হইছেন to understand autism is really important আমরা community মাঝে this ছোট ছোট জিনিস ওটা আমরা adjustment করলে নানি as parents and I say as parents I have a nephew very dear to me he's on the spectrum and as parents and caregivers and family members I'm like it's important to understand then to make life easier for them because their outlook on life is very different আমরা সবর তো এমনি neurotypical যতজন আছেন আমরা সবর তো different interests আছে কেউ আছে ফুটবল ভালো পায় কেউ আছে টেনিস ভালো পাইব কেউ আছে like myself just food there's different
Yeah.
interests there but likewise they have different interests but amra ulam we can come in and out dip in and out because amra the way our brains are wired up amra ekta khortom pari we can dip in and out of topics and conversations even if they're not of interest to us but taranangi unless it's of interest to them they block it out
They don't want
they
to.
completely under
Right.
so yeah it's complicated if we make it but understanding that it does become much easier.
Much easier. So it kind of takes me back to a question. So Amrakila identify করতাম পারমু the signs that the young বয়স থাকি যে একটা বাচ্চার মাঝে maybe autism or sign or traits দেখাইরা what can we look out for? Like obviously you're a parent yourself, you've got a nephew as you said, maybe in your experience you've picked up on certain things and you're like, oh, as a parent this is what you would probably see first before the child has gone to school,
Absolutely, but we have to be so careful we don't diagnose them. It's like Google doctor, Google diagnosis.
Yeah, of
so
course.
we have kubi shabdan takhalage because bachan developmentally different stage no naturally so bachan shuman tahunna but there's some typical things that we can look out for. So young children are very young children maze signs ektanani nam dore dakba saito nai or eye contact manai na or that's one of the জিনিস আছে again একটা age related আছে কোন সময় আছে আপনার they খেলাত আছে অনেক দ্বন্দ্ব আছে টিভি দেখে এমনি naturally চান না so we mustn't it shouldn't be a knee jerk reaction. I contact avoid করেন they find that quite difficult একটা so again social interaction লাগি ও ছোট বাচ্চা তাকি দেখবা যেন ইয়ে করে smiling করতে না, so আপনি যখন communication and if you smile তারা আমরা জানি আমি যে স্মাইল করি আপনি naturally respond করবা স্মাইল করবা বাচ্চা একটা serve and returns একটা communication একটা necessarily বুঝে না so আপনি or whether it's through emotions facial expressions and then even communication আপনি একটা জিকাইবার একটা answer করবো and যেটা answer করবো only a topic of the interest বাচ্চা খুব easily upset হইতে পারে and your emotional হয়ে যায় লোকালো because again frustration একটা জিনিস বুঝাইতে পারেন না মা বাপে বুঝরা না খেগিবারে বুঝরা না তো এটা থাকি বাচ্চার distress হইতে পারে and I've said this before the sensory needs that smell taste touch and sound I won't repeat go over that because I explained what's already কোনো সময় বাচ্চা দেখবা ছোট বাচ্চা না from my experience parents হলে আমার কইছেন they may lick metal because it's texture so radiator or holna ni dekha zifra like what they're doing and because as a thanda takhina ni as a texture na and zifrat like they find that quite soothing so out of that there wasn't certain zinish your as a bacha and it can happen again naturally if you're looking at child developments toilet holded bacha toilet smear kore atai to sai so to sai again that's linked to the sensory needs again it's very hard, it's very difficult and I've had
I've heard of people saying the child puts the hand into their nappies and then you've got a big mess to deal with whereas maybe the same age group child might be like oh I mean toilet horsey like change me or something they might already be on that level of communication.
Sure. An isolated incident is probably because the child is uncomfortable explore করে বা এটা সবটা কি থাকা লাগে all of those little aspects আর একটা হইলো repetitive behavior এখন সময় আছে flapping করব হাত দিয়া এখন সময় আছে rocking করব and again এটা discourage আমরা কমে এটা করিস না that's not right again we should এটা আমরা discourage করার দরকার না because এটা ওই কিতা বাচ্চারে নানি these things help them to calm down so একটা না overwhelm হয়ে যায় কিনানি because tara processing amra jodi if we process something at 50 miles an hour they're doing it 100 miles an hour even 150 miles an hour so tara they get very tired tired is like brain tired so we've got to be really mindful of that so hyperactivity or takto fare loge falaibo jaga falaibo or on the sofa or on the bed can be dangerous I'm not discouraged for that so I know my sister what she did she got my nephew a trampoline in the garden and
so
rather than because he's got a need there এখন একটা need আছে আপনি এটা তারা ডিসকারেজ করিয়া স্টপ করলে তো খামাইতো না, ডিস্ট্রেস হইব। সো rather than fighting against it, আমরা support করতাম, we give him that allow
Give him that
that
space, give him that,
in a safe
yeah.
environment, which
Okay.
so yeah, so that there's lots of little things we can do like that. And tara দেখবা অন্য বাচ্চা লোকে মাতিতো না necessarily clearly, but just they might tolerate them in their environment. So like for very young babies, they play alongside, not with. But
Okay.
and as they get older, they continue to play alongside, not with. So tolerate করতে পারে যে খেলাইরা আমার গালাতে লোকে মারতো না, ইয়ে করতো না। আসলে বাচ্চার কাছে দেখে
Mate,
দেখলে
yeah,
খেলাইতে চায়,
yeah.
মারতো চায়, কমিউনিকেট করতে চায়। ও এখন সময় আছে স্ন্যাচ করবো, আপনাকে
Okay.
নিব কি জোরে কইব গো আমার। And
Yeah.
আরো জিনিস আছে, এখন সময় তারা pattern is very significant for them. তারা লাইন ধরে জিনিস বলতে হয় in a certain order. And I know my nephew did that, and he used
Yeah,
to line
it
up
has
all
to be
his
the
toys.
perfect line, or it has to be
Absolutely.
all in color order or size
Yeah.
order. They're very particular about certain things, isn't it? Like
Yes,
having
no,
it a certain
definitely,
way.
definitely. And that if it isn't in that order, and if you move it, that can be quite distressing. So, if you have a child, bacha say with autism, don't worry about having a messy household. It's absolutely fine. I'm not asking any to go tidy and I know my sister was the tidiest person I know, but now you go
Yeah.
around, she's got that bouncy ball takinani, the ones you sit on
Yeah.
with the ears,
Yeah.
the space hoppers. She's got one of those. She's got all sorts of toys, again because he needs these,
He
and
needs these things for his,
he needs it. So
Okay. So if we're আমরা যদি ইলা চিন্তা থাকে যে আমরার বাচ্চার মাঝে maybe we're picking up on patterns. আমরা দেখি আর ছোট ছোট sign, not one off, but দেখি আর যে ওলা sign আছে, or for instance, this is something that parents do all the time, যে like আমার friendর বাচ্চা বা আমার familyর বাচ্চা is the same age as my child, yet they're not doing the same things, and they seem like they're very far behind in these certain things. What is it that we can do as parents? Because a lot of the time manche wait করেন স্কুলও যাওয়ার বাদে স্কুলে বাদে ডিল করে, but
yeah.
what can we do to fast forward certain processes and support our children before they've even got to school?
Oh no, definitely. I'm at first point of contact. I would recommend the home health visitor. So there are young baচ্চা health visitor but the developmental milestones একটা নানি আপনারা red book থাকে নানি ওটা make sure, and the concern তাহলে তারা লোকে share করতে আছে, look I've got a concern, আমার বাচ্চারোলা আমি দেখি আর মাথের না যখন, and usually they're very good at picking it up. আর ওইসে কিটা unfortunately COVID দ্বারাই, and I can say that for my own 3-year-old, we've never seen a health visitor. Both my parents are from, they're both parents are from us, and then health visitor they may have a child at home with signs as or some traits of autism possibly, but kuchu korte paren na because they're not a professional hasn't picked it up. So ilas kuno concern ta GP gese jaiba buchonni, GP gese gele GP re hoite harba, then amara ola concern, and tara referral korbo to the child development center, the CDC, every local authority maze ase. The child development center kita hore tara is a team of experts. এর মাঝে থাকে speech and language therapist, occupational therapist, pediatrician, sometimes a psychiatrist, depending on the nature of the how severe the autism might be. So
you might show behavior needs as well, isn't it? The behavior is quite erratic, so they might need educational psychologists.
So EP থাকবো সব সময় psychiatrist থাকে if there's kind of, because sometimes then with autism, children with special needs, they may have more than one need. So autism থাকতে পারে main need, they may also have ADHD, so or ADD. So that's ADHD, look at attention deficit hyper activity disorder. So তারা খুব বেশি active থাকে ও খুব বেশি আমরা সমালা যায় না, very difficult to manage ওই জায়গা, or so era nani era lagi apne, so psychiatrists lagi, because there's other complicating factors that need to be taken into consideration. So psychiatrists takte pare ote lagi, where the psychiatrists take if there is a medical need. So kuno shomay ase kuno bachcha nani, they may have to be given medication tarare calm korba lagi. Again, it's parental choice, no one can force it on your child, and it's not it's not right for every child. That I prescribe korte pare, but it's not right for every child. That's the educational psychiatrist. If you get educational psychologist sector, they do work around behavior and therapy and non-medical approaches that can have
Okay.
just as good or if not better impact on the
Okay.
child.
Okay.
So so if you're at a stage, unfortunately, the school of bachas are not concerned. So my recommendation would be then school loge mat palagi teacher or loge mat palagi or ask to speak to the Senko, special needs coordinator. Senko apnara guide for kila kita, they can do the referral as well. A referral loy kita again. Often the medical referrals are faster than the school referrals,
Yeah.
because it's from one medical professional who knows more about the needs
Yeah.
than necessarily a school setting. So, but it does go through. I've done many in my time,
Yeah.
and then
But it does take a long while.
it does take
Long
time. We
while.
have to be patient, and again, the sooner we do it, the sooner we get the diagnostic. I'm like I say, not because I'm a label say but chalagi. I'm getting the right support for the child. And
Support.
again,
Of course.
the early intervention is the best intervention. So the early bachare, your support tampari. And again, I say this with a little bit of a heavy heart, unfortunately. The current crisis sector, financial crisis upon schools, and a one-to-one support sector. You know this better than I do, Amina. But the crisis is, I mean, but generally one-to-one support. Some children needed two-to-one support at times. Now schools are having to decide whether or not they need to be two children to one adult or three children to one adult because the cost
Ola
are
আছে
so
কোনো
high.
classroom তারা adult extra দিতে পারেন না because there's higher needs in other classrooms. So there's a teacher being left. Ekhla যে, you deal with your 30 children because you're capable or you don't have high needs. Whereas in another classroom, maybe দুইটা বাচ্চা আছে যে তারার special needs. So, দুইটা assistant ও থাকতে পারে, teaching assistant থাকতে পারে, plus a teacher. So yeah, there is the financial crisis, of course, is not helping. And often from my experience in my job, what I hear is, we give you extra funding. Tumatandre extra fosha dewa wayo itahurutan lagi, use it. But what they give us is not even close to meeting the child's need. So yes, the child might come with 5,000 soyadar ito pare ekta childhood placement. Plus aro maybe £10,000 on top fibo ze tar educational EHCPs ekta hoktal lagi. However, E15,000 to ekta full-time adult or salary cover huito na, let alone tarar additional therapies, zinish data lage, toys data lage, books data lage, it's not close. Ekta full-time teaching assistant or salary plus overheads is almost close to £30,000
Yeah,
a year,
nearly
and we're
double.
getting half. So where is the school meant to get the other half from? Because they're not using that TA for any other child. They have to give them the one-to-one. So we're in this position where equal opportunities, of course, we have to give these children the chance in life, and therefore amra tokhan fari amra I bachare help করব, but government take amra কোনো support পাই না.
Yeah. So
We're just
parents
dealt with.
of the request from to be patient, but there are also parents, you have rights as well. Apnara rights so I say bachalagi. So I mean, just as you touched on the EHC plan, apnara zara zanoin na both asun ki ban zandrao apnara educational health care plan we logi apnara lagi apnar bachalagi ekta document which outlines the child's needs. So whether it's speech and language, occupational therapy, educational needs, psychological needs, whatever it is, outline kora. And it priority day or where you want to place your child. Having said that, এখন সময় আছে স্পেশাল স্কুল ফ্যামিলি হলে সাইন স্পেশাল স্কুল জায়গা নাই আসলে মেইন প্রবলেম হলো জায়গা নাই সো এখন আস্তে আস্তে লোকাল অথরিটিজ হলে কিতা করা মেইন স্ট্রিম স্কুল আইনতো আপ হুনতা পারবেন ARP or additional resource provision whole set up করা তারা একটা বাচ্চারে it's like a stepping stone between mainstream and special school. So ওটা set up করা or to fill that gap basically. But it's a
big
difficult
job
gap.
though. It's a massive job. And from my background, I mean I'm in a special school, needs school. They closed down the school. So then you think, all these children are going back to mainstream school. Tarare arbar force kora or mainstream school o ze jaga taki tara aise amrar gese because tara এই স্কুলের মাঝে কোপ করেন না ওটা বাচ্চা তোরে আরবার ও স্কুল নিয়ে আর তারা তো obviously mentally they were all over the place খালি তারা নাই তারার families too. But again, it comes back down to money. So yes, tara schoolor maze pressure there je tumra ota khoro, you know, you have to do all these things legally. But then they tara amrar gesta ki amra power ner gear, but because they're not giving us the money to do it. It doesn't to free na kheo to khero lagi free khoren na. But even then, from where I sit on my professional background, I always look for, you know, charities or volunteers. Is there any funding out there? Is there any grants out there? Like schools are a business, you know, it's not just you know, a school as you know, gelam for ilam baraya ilam. No, whoever's in senior management, we have to look for other ways to fill those gaps. And sometimes we're chasing our own tails, and we're not getting that support. And obviously you from senior leadership, you'll understand that as well, you know, that how difficult it is.
We might have the money, but we can't recruit because recruitment difficulties is because someone doing that same job in Tesco's will get paid more for the same number of hours, and they work in the school, and it's a lot more challenging because intimate care says and adult size we get a butcher, you know, it could be 10, 11-year-olds, even secondary, and they're still in nappies. Kind of needs are such that they have to be. So after like intimate care lagi. So hoist
and also there's the element of khali safeguarding to amra khali hurutar safeguarding na amra adults or safeguarding ase. So as a school amra dekhtam hoibo je ekta bachcha maybe year 5 year 6 o oito pare, but amar che boro okhni ge amare ekta thusha mari dilo lat mari dilo ami gure khila control kortam. I don't have that physical ability to do it. So you know, they're not looking at those elements as well. They you know, Tesco kham khullam ami shelf boria gelam arbar goro gelam gi, that's it, end of story. Right? I'm not going home with bruises. I'm not going home যে আমার emotional ও একটা impact আছে, because a lot of people that from my experience what I've seen is when they work with children with such high needs, তারারও emotionally একটা impact হয়ে যায়, so they start having issues as well. And then we have to look at, as a school or as an organization, how are we supporting those people, and do we need to give them counseling, do we need to give them mentoring? So it's a knock-on effect.
No, absolutely. And in one of my other roles is the mental health lead at my school, where I am constantly talking to the staff and reassuring them that, you know, it's hard when you're in the thick of it. And like you said, you got to try and get them to see them that, you know, it ultimately it's a child. It's not us, it's the profession, it's the job, it's the role that we do. That's, you know, and so it's a big conversation, and it's a regular conversation. And I completely understand some of the ladies that work at my school come battered and bruised at times, and the child, and again the child communicate for it. So you know what triggered it. So both জিনিস আছে দেন কিতা লাগি ওর না ওর কুম্বাল হইছে খাইবার আগে হইছে না খানির বাদে হইছে না ঠান্ডা আছিল না গরম আছিল না মানুষ খেয়ে আসলে, but there's lots of things that can trigger behavior or tamra identify করা লাগে. So it's like making notes, you know. First time you won't know necessarily, so we keep records.
We pick up on patterns.
And pattern to pick up Korea, then we can say, actually, you know what, lunch khaibar age jodi na people lan the child gets very distressed because they're still hungry, or whatever, you know.
There's different things.
There are lots of different scenarios and examples.
Of course. So we'll come back to this. Viewers, আমরা একটা ছোট break লইয়ার, and when we're back we'll continue our conversation.
A professional logo is very important for your business, because a logo expresses the company's identity. If the logo is not meaningful and attractive, then it is impossible for your company to provide information about your company's services to the targeting customers. Our company is the only company that can offer you quality, affordable, professional logos at the lowest prices. So without delay, create a professional logo for your company today.
excessive research and bad experiences, he finally found out Sure Secure, the best CCTV security service systems provider. They have experience over 15 years long. They provide quality and professional security installations, from intruder alarms to CCTV systems, in addition to access control. Their products are of the highest quality, using up-to-date technology equipment range. Their CCTV range allows for live viewing, playback, and the ability to digitally zoom using high-definition images. The CCTV images can be monitored in crystal clear Full HD 1080p and 4K quality with a smartphone, tablet, desktop computer, or even your laptop. With Sure Secure, now Bob can check up on his properties remotely from anywhere in the world. After each installation, they make sure that you are fully trained in order to use the equipment and respond quickly to any fault. Whether you're looking for domestic, commercial, or industrial services, Sure Secure will design and build the perfect security system for all your needs.
Hello viewers and welcome back. So amra matata salam amra autism loya. We're still on the topic. But as you were saying, autism is a big and broad topic. Obviously, amra ek ghontar maze shara capture kortam partam na, but we're going to try our best to give people awareness. So ola there's many parents তারা যে দেখো যে তারা বাচ্চার মাঝে একটা প্যাটার্ন আছে ট্রেট আছে যে অটিজমের বাট তারা অ্যাকসেপ্ট করতে চায় না তারা ডিনায়ালর মাঝে আছে so what is your advice to them that how would you encourage them to come forward and come to acceptance with the fact that তারার বাচ্চার একটা ইস্যু ও একটা কন্ডিশন আছে
আমি আপনার একটা very simple example there in my early years as Senko বাচ্চা still needed hearing aid মেয়াসিন আর my hearing aid ফিনতাইতা না আমি বারবার কইতেন লোক hearing aid দরকার it's like wearing glasses একটা জিনিস aid করে লেখাপড়া করতে করা লাগে ইস্যুজ হয় my response হইল গিয়া আমার ফুরির যদি hearing aid ফিনদে তো আমার ফুরির বিয়ে হইতো না and we were dealing with a 7-year-old so it was a Pakistani community থেকে so আমি বুঝাইলাম কইলাম লোক বাচ্চার যদি class or learning access korte pare then she will be in a position where she's got a good education she will be choosing who she marries it won't be the other way around she won't be left on the shelf so it's it's a stigma jektana nikta amra South Asian community maze quite a bit and ami jani amra Bengali community maze o ase we have to change culture understanding buz amra bodlani lagbo khane amra first and foremost language unai যেটা আমরা ইউজ করি আমরা কেউ কইবা আরওয়া কেউ কইবা মাতার দোষ কেউ কইবা গিয়ে ফাগল বুঝে না বা তারা দোষী না আমি because there isn't language and there isn't vocabulary to explain these but ক্লিয়ার আমরা চেঞ্জ করা লাগবো we can use words as autism কইলে কোনো অসুবিধা নাই আমরা তো বেমার লাগি অন্য টুফেক কইতাম পারি নাইলে হেডেক কইতাম পারি তে অটিজম কইলে কোনো অসুবিধা নাই so we আমরা কালচার ফয়লা আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ডিং বদলাইন লাগবো আমরা acceptance আমরা রেখো সময় আছে নানি ফয়লা ইয়ালে আমরা মনে করি oh my god the whole amar far and we have to accept that it is a massive change in someone's life because and again having worked with many families and also my personal experiences you're thinking about that child beyond their childhood mama bape চিন্তা করব যে আমি বড়ইয়া লেগুরে গিয়ে কিতা করব খিলা খাইবো খিলা রইব খিলা কাম করতে পারবো নি রইতে পারবো নি মারতে পারবো নি বিয়া শাদী দিতাম পারবো নি তো অনেকটা চিন্তা থাকে there's a lot of চিন্তা and they're legitimate কেউ তা dismiss করে না but despite that আমরা যদি again going back to the hearing aid আমরা equip করতাম পারবো we can't change it because Allah or however you want to look at it is something you've been dealt with that card and you've got to deal with it আমরা যদি mindset আমরা বদলাই দেখি আমরা পজিটিভলি then then সবটা বদলে একটা এক্সাম্পল আমি in my early years as Senko I used to work in Newham there was a child who bacha tar eyesight lose for completely in the school within a matter of, it's a degenerative condition asil, within a matter of 6 months he went completely blind. Now my buffs then obviously was a big shock to them. Rather than looking at it as a negative thing, they turned it around. They put a spin on it, looking at it like glass half full rather than half empty. And then, because of their attitude and their approach, and they were advocates for him. That the support access, they went for everything, made sure his life there was no limits to what he could access, and then now he plays for England blind football team in the Paralympics.
Oh, wow.
His name is Liam Archer. If anyone Googles it, paper. I mean, this is child, one of the very first children I worked with. So there are no limits.
So তারা নেগেটিভ একটা জিনিস রে ও সাপোজিটলি নেগেটিভ একটা জিনিস রে নিয়া তারা পজিটিভ বানাইয়া এই বাচ্চারও একটা লাইফেরও একটা opportunities খুললো, they out in society, and if anything obviously Olympics or lagi খেলার obviously তারা their life is made in that sense that, you know, আর খামখাজোরও হইছেন তা না, plus it's something maybe obviously I'm assuming it's something that he likes doing.
Sure.
And there's no issues around learning, because obviously আমরা আরেকটা যে আছে যে আমরা ইলা কন্ডিশনার হুরুতারে আমরা প্রেসার দেই যে হিকতোইব, like we force them হিকতে না খেনে, you know, অমুকর বাচ্চা same age ও সপ্তাহ হিকলিছে তুই হিকরে না খেনে, বাট আমরা যদি তারার ইন্টারেস্ট দেখটা ওখটারে লইয়া তারারে পুশ করি, মেবি তারা ওখটা তাকে সাকসেস করতে পারে।
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And we let them take the lead and let them be the lead learners. আমরা facilitate করতাম, তো তারা ইন্টারেস্ট একটা ওটারে আমরা develop করতাম ওটারে, and they thrive. And you know, আমরা optimistic থাকলে এখানে একটা জিনিস আছে, and I'm going slightly off task, আমরা যেটা না internal voice একটা থাকে আমরা মাইন্ডের মধ্যে. Do you know where that comes from? That comes from our parents' voice. So our internal voice, actually psychological research shows that it's our parents' voice. So how we perceive ourselves, how we perceive the world, it's what the narrative our parents are, and sometimes positive, sometimes not necessarily so positive, because their understanding of the world was different. So and their priorities were different as well. So, and again, it's not a criticism on them. So now we've got this awareness. So amranani positively bachalago matatam neurotypical send any child chob bacha buze amra mone kori buze na gwarwa, no, bacha buze, whether or not they're looking at you, they can hear you, they understand you, okay. It might be to a different degree, but I understand horrible. So amra erare the narratives that amra use hotam mat hota jara loge jeta matam positive, shob shomoy positive hole tarao happy থাকবো, tarao খুশ থাকবো, আমরা নিজেরও, you know, yes, it's difficult, but amra it becomes easier to deal with, and kind of move forward with it. And if you've got a family member, and I'll give you my personal example again. See, my sister, she'd, you know, not intentionally, she'd sort of isolated herself because of my nephew, because of Usman, and not because she wanted to isolate him, because it becomes, when you've got a child with autism, and he's a little bit flappy, he's quite active, so you know, if you've got an invite somewhere, it's hard, it's very difficult, because tara manage kora, tara control kora is very difficult. You know, he is overwhelmed with the sounds, you know, the busyness and everything else. You know, simple things like going to see a new baby, you know, that can be quite hard, because you're conscious, you're worried about baby. You know, so these things, doesn't matter how big your family is, you can close in on yourself and really become quite isolated. So it's really important that we don't do that, and as other family members, we don't allow that to happen either, and we've got to facilitate that. And for that mother, and I always say to my staff, I said, don't judge the mothers in the playground. You know, they come in and their hair's not done, or they really, you know, looking like they just got out of bed, and it might be so, because we don't know that our experience it's hard. So I'm not judge for other, it's easy to judge, but we mustn't judge or bodla. Let's support them, let's give them that, you know, sometimes we can't do anything physically, but emotional support, you know, give them a call, how are you, you know, let's meet up, whatever. You can adjust things around you to make it, to facilitate it, and you know, and that is the best gift you can give them. We can't, you know, if they've got a child with needs, you can't take that away, and maybe that child doesn't respond to you, but you can support them in other ways, just by understanding the situation. They're not looking for pity. They
No.
don't want you to feel sorry for them, but just to understand them. Understanding.
Understand them. So, Octave, I mean, like my next question was going to be kind of like, আমরা তো দেখি maybe like আমরা relatives হোক, friends এর মাঝে হোক যে একটা মানুষের বাচ্চা আছে with autism, আইয়ালে বেশি দুষ্টামি করে, বেশি hyperactive, জিনিস ভাঙতে পারে, জিনিস নষ্টও করতে পারে, plus maybe আমার স্পেসও নাই, অন্য হুরুতাও থাকতে পারেন, হতা হুরুতাও dysregulate হয়ে যেতে পারেন because তারার অশান্তি দেখিয়া, they call it অশান্তি, right?
Yeah.
So in that sense, আমরা in our community, let's call it for instance, how is it that আমরা কিলা আমরা নিজেরা ট্রেন করতাম পারমু যে ইলা একটা মানুষ ও ইলা একটা ফ্যামিলি যদি থাকে তারার মাঝে অটিজম আছে, আমরা তারার কিলা ইনক্লুসিভ রাখতাম, like we need to include them, আমরা তারার কিলা হেল্প করতাম পারমু যে already is challenging এই ফ্যামিলি লাগি, যে তারা তারা ডেইলি লাইফের মাঝে কত চ্যালেঞ্জেস আছে, মেবি আমরা আধা দিন একদিন ও বাচ্চারা লইয়া আমরা মেবি বেবি সিট করতাম পারমুনি, করতে পারলে মেবি মা বাপ বাড়া যাইতা পারবা শপিং কর লাগিও, even just for a cup of coffee, without that disruption or without that thought behind them. How is it that we can come together to support these families is basically what I'm asking you.
No, absolutely, and that's a really great question, and one thing that parents can do themselves is start up a network, and both like-minded and family mazeto understanding tahalage shobe, we have to I've discussed that already. But the other thing I would say, and this is something I set up at my school, where coffee mornings for parents, and initially I had one parent come in, but then over time we had more and more parents come in because the word spread, and it allowed tarare networking koralagi. And we've got shared experience. You can they parents with children with autism learn better from each other than from us, because they're talking about we're talking about textbook, they're talking about real experiences, and they can support each other, and that grows. And from these meetings, and I used to be present at these meetings, I took away the fact that parents, like you mentioned earlier, shopping's hour, which is it's a basic essential for families, for food or whatever you need, that in itself becomes an absolute challenge. So parents were talking about this. This then led me to devise a program called Life Skills. Basically, I mean, it's not a big program. It's kind of specific to my school. But it's nothing, it's not groundbreaking, but it's just common sense. I think what we did,
but it still makes a difference.
So what we did, I took away parents of lot anxieties, worries. Part of that was listening to them, what's going well, what isn't. And after Dolahoria, I then set up the program where I thought, okay, we've got trained staff here. We're going to do. I contacted our local Tesco's. We want to do a trip with our children, blah blah blah. So, and that involved from one activity, such as going to Tesco's, that involved. Okay, why are we going to Tesco's? There's a purpose, right? It's Abdul's birthday. We're gonna celebrate Abdul's birthday. We need to bake a cake, right? What ingredients do we need? So there's more learning there. So on ingredients, a whole list. We need this, we need that, we need that. So how do we get to Tesco's? Now we're looking at whether we walk in or we're taking public transport. How do we get there? Then we're looking at safe adults. So someone in a someone in a Tesco uniform inside Tesco's is a safe adult, but that same person out in the park isn't necessarily a safe adult. So we did a lot of work around that, and every child, again, because of the spectrum, every child's needs are different. So confidence or issue that they had a task where they had to ask for where is the sugar, where are the eggs kept, or use their picture communication card to express that, facilitate, supported by the adult. So there's yes, it was hard initially, but over time, that then became so much easier. I had parents coming back saying, you know what, that's life changing, and alhamdulillah, and it's been really positive. Again, COVID's put an end to some of this, but we are and I'm sure other schools can do. If parents suggested to Senkos and school leaders, they will happily take part. And I know, I mean, it's like some of our neighboring schools, they came to see how we run our life skills.
You run it. I was just thinking in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I might have to tap into you at some point.
Inshallah, inshallah.
I had a comment from one of our viewers, and it's kind of what I was going to ask you anyway. Um, it's like the rising numbers of autism. So what my viewer is asking is, how can we prevent autism? Now, there is no real prevention in that sense. However, there are certain things that we discussed before the show, is things like, obviously we've got genetics, marrying cousins, you've got drugs, alcohol. Can you give us a bit of your insight and your expertise on this?
Sure. So it is on the rise, and I do see it more in our communities than any other community, primarily because it's probably because majority of the population is from our community. But I'm going to mention Beshi because, again, like you mentioned, marrying first cousins, and when you look back at the family genetics, the parents are also first cousins, and you can go back several generations with their first cousins, and understand that within the family, whatever. But actually, what they're doing, the DNA masinani deficiency it gets worse every generation. Some people, but everyone will be a carrier. They may not show the signs, but they will be a carrier of that gene that then gets passed on. And adolescent parents of because mothers are more career driven these days. Therefore, by the time they settle down ready for children, they're older mothers, and they have complications, and they can have children with autism. The other one, we look at drug alcohol misuse. I'm not and being the safeguarding lead, I know it happens in our community because I deal with it on a daily basis. So that's again, that affects as well. It's likely that another child might have it as well. The other thing I would like to tell our community is, often we blame the woman. I've heard that term a few times, but actually scientifically, and it's proven that the father is twice as likely to carry than the mother. So the father is actually the one who's passing on that gene, the deficient gene. Then and it's not necessarily the mother. So we've got to be respectful and mindful. And the last thing you want to do is, when a mother has had, and it's traumatic for everyone, but even more so for the mother. And Amra support Hortam, and it goes back to what you're saying about how, as families and friends, how we can support them. Support first needs to come from spouses and immediate family, ma, baf,
আমরা তো কালচারের মাঝে পয়লা দুষাদুষি আরম্ভ হয়ে যায়, ও বেটির চলাফিরা বালা আছিল না, দিনে রাইতে চলছে, জিনে চইলিছে, there's so many things that you'll hear, like very like crazy stuff that you'll hear. But obviously now science says autism is a genetic disorder. It's not something that it just appears from how you are, or maybe enough gumaisona, enough khaisona. It's not that, it is genetic, and maybe generations and generations have come through and khirur oisena, but tumar generation aya oigise o okhano oito pare maybe kuno generation oise, but manche age kita hoita oigo awa igu tura shida type or igu sole ola sole hola sole igure ila khani dio na hola dio, like they knew pattern kita buchoin, but igur kuno diagnosis asil na, igur kuno naam asil na, so igur recognize korsin na.
Sadly, I've heard of children being, I mean, na obviously Bangladesh son chol ko yegar bandiya rakhi dita. And this is really sad.
ও মাদ্রাসাত দিলাইলা, মাদ্রাসাত দিয়া মেসাবিহীন মারতে মারতে ইগুরের অবস্থা খারাপ, ইগে খালি শয়তানি করে, বাট ইগে তো বুঝতে পারেন না, that's they not understanding that.
Madrasa to school, and then when they rank madrasa to school tonani, they rank according to ability. So can you imagine if you're on the spectrum, where you would be in a class of 30, you'd be number 40,
Yes.
So very mindful of that. But the thing is, the children with autism are amazing people. They're and this is when I came into teaching, more or less, I think a year or two in to my teaching, I fell in love with them, and I just, it became my passion. It became my passion to make a difference. And they are, I'm not monokhori, but when you get to know them, they are individuals. They will make you laugh. They have sense of humor. They have great abilities, You know, it's not, you know, it's not disability, it's different ability, and we've got to understand that. And we've got to grow them, which, and we've got to support them differently. The neurotypical bachcha, even they're hard. You know, every child is difficult to raise. You know,
Yes.
especially in this day and age with technology and phones and swiping and everything else.
Yep.
It's even harder for children, for parents with children with SEN. But আমরা একটু optimistic হইতাম. We've got to take it in our stride, and we've got to give them the best level of support. I know children on the spectrum who've ended up at grammar schools. So
Oh wow.
they've been,
Yeah.
you know, they spectrum, because it's a line. You can be one end of the spectrum where you're not coping very well, or you could be the other end of the spectrum where you're doing really fantastically well. But your social communication needs, interaction needs that.
Yes.
You know, sometimes chaos is personal space was, and I'll come right close to you.
Yes.
Yeah, and then that's not because they're trying to be creepy or awkward. That might be a need.
Just thoroughly awareness now.
Awareness,
There,
yeah.
but
Personal
again, we
space.
can almost like আমরা তারারে একটা condition করতাম পারি with school and with home support that, you know what, yes, you don't understand যে অত খাসাত গেরজনের লগে মাতিলে ই মানুষের uncomfortable লাগে, but just take a step back. So আস্তে আস্তে দেখা যায় যে actually তারা একটা বুঝতে পারে খেনে করের ইকাম বুঝতো না, but বুঝবো যে actually আমি একটা step back লইতাম হইব because ই মানুষের uncomfortable লাগবো, ও আমারে ওখানে হিকানি হইছে.
No,
So they
definitely.
can almost be conditioned to survive in society.
Yeah, no, this is where educational psychologists come in. They can help that through social stories. I don't know if you can parents on social stories or use where it's basically they will use characters. You might even use that child, and then that story they'll use pictures and visuals, and then explain that if Abdul is too close to Amina's feeling uncomfortable because Amina needs a personal space. So Amina takes a step back. Abdul also needs to take a step back. So it's that kind of, yeah. So you're reading them a story, and it's kind of, you do it over and over again, and that buze understand her. The great thing about autism and children on the spectrum is once they understand, and you know, because they can be quite rigid with their behavior. Your repetitive, they lack structure, they lack routine. Routine difficult routine set up use visual timetables. Google so it doesn't have to be anything fantastic. Look at dinner time, look at toilet time, look at bathroom time. First we brush our teeth. Because that's it's a sensory need.
A sensory need is too much. Yeah, it's difficult.
So it's hard, and but we have to persevere. This is why it's hard for parents. A professional input and support from the family as well.
And এটা actually কোনো শরম না, that's the main thing is that তোমার বাচ্চার একটা condition আছে, তুমি এগু শরমাইলে এগু বাচ্চার আরো এফেক্ট হইব, আরো নেগেটিভ ইম্প্যাক্ট হইব. So the sooner তুমি একটা accept করো, the sooner তুমি একটা routines হোক and educational input হোক and you know, professional input হোক, like when you've got all of that, it helps your child. একটারে একটা ফাস্ট ট্র্যাক করিয়া দিব যে আমার বাচ্চা হয়তো ৬০ বছর বয়সে গেছে, আবু মাতেন না, বাট স্পিচ ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ থেরাপিস্টর গেছে গেলে আস্তে আস্তে ওয়ার্ডস পিক আপ হইব. আমি যদি আরো মানুষের লগে চলাফেরা করি, তারা সোসাইটির মাঝে বাড়াইব, আরো সাউন্ড শিখবো, ওয়ার্ড শিখবো, interaction শিখবো. So instead of আমরা ও গরর ভিতরে হরাইয়া থাকতাম and you know isolated থাকতাম, ইলা না করিয়া we need to put ourselves out there to basically absorb everything from around us. We need to tap into that as parents. And you know what, routines and things like that, even amra no like zarar autism nai, amra routine ekta tura besh khomoy alle dekyo matat kita khore lage like oh my god, like I could din shara bad jaibo, you know, like because ekta jinish routine moto hoise na. And when on the spectrum
holidays are prime time when routines go out the window.
Of course.
And it's like it's so important, because the other thing, our brain nani works faster than our brains because they're trying to make sense. We take it for granted. They're trying to understand it, therefore the brains are they're tired. They're tiredness stuff, but they're almost like toddlers. Even the older children, a toddler lahan takhle, soto bachcha lahan takhle, kita kore bachcha gumai ba shoma gumaini, khandibo, palaibo, silaibo, rather than just go to sleep. So that's why we need to kind of not treat them like babies, but have that understandings, and that is maybe they're tired, maybe they're this, maybe they're that. There's a communications after nani. We've got to limit it to what they can tolerate or what they can
tolerate.
can cope
Plus,
with.
আমরা just small adjustments আমরা as parents or as educationalists actually small adjustments আমরা বানাইলে we can see that actually works in our favor. তারা হুরুতা শান্তিও থাকে, তারা বুঝতেও try করে, they're happier in the environment. Right, so we are sadly at the end of our hour. Obviously, we can talk for ages and ages about this. Inshallah, I'll have you back on at some point, you know, to continue such discussions. Obviously, we just touched on a very small percentage of what's happening in the world in that sense. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. I know it's your holidays as well. You've given us an hour of your time. Inshallah, if one person picks up one thing and takes it with them, hopefully that's enough for us in that sense. So dear viewers, আজকুর লাগি আমরা তো প্রোগ্রামের টাইম শেষ, সো আশা করি আজকুর আমরা যে টপিক আছিল সবার একটা অ্যাওয়ারনেস বাড়ছে about autism একটা শরম নাই, একটা বেমারও নাই, একটা কন্ডিশন। সো autism লইয়া মানুষ পুরা নর্মাল ভাবেও চলতে পারে, মেবি কেউ পুরা নর্মাল ভাবে নাও চলতে পারে। there's different spectrum, different level আছে autismর। সো আমরা একটা বুঝতাম হইব যে হয়তো কিবান একজনের ডায়াগনোসিস হইতে পারে autismর, বাট হে ফাংশন করতে পারবো ইন সোসাইটি, হে সারা লাইফও খুলাইয়া যাইতো কি পারবো, তার কোনো অসুবিধা হইতো না। আমরা যদি সাইন দেখি, আমরা বুঝতাম পারি যে আমরার বাচ্চার মাঝে একটা সাইন আছে, একটা ট্রেট আছে। আমরা যত আর্লি পারি একটা অ্যাসেসমেন্ট যদি করাই বা একটা জিপির হেল্প হোক আর স্কুলের হেল্প হোক, আমরা যদি লই আমরার বাচ্চারে আমরা অ্যাকচুয়ালি হেল্প করবো এন্ড আমরা একটা ফাস্ট ট্র্যাক করবো। প্লাস আমরা স্কুল হোক আর হোম হোক আমরা দুইজন এক পেজও থাকতে হইব যে স্কুলও যেটা করে আমরা গড়েও একটা করতাম হইব, প্লাস গড়েও আমরা যেটা করি দেখি একটা কাম করে আমরা স্কুলেও জানাইতাম, সো মেবি তারাও একটা তাকে বেনিফিট পাইব। প্লাস বাচ্চার একটা কন্টিনিউয়েশন থাকবো স্কুলে এন্ড বাড়ায়। আমরা ফ্যামিলির মাঝে রিলেটিভসের মাঝেও যদি দেখি যে একটা বাচ্চার ইলা ডায়াগনোসিস আছে, আমরা চেষ্টা করতাম যে আমরা তারারে কোনো সাপোর্ট দিতাম পারমুনি। ইভেন আমরা হাফ এ ডে লাগি যদি বাচ্চারে আমরা লুক আফটার করতাম পারি, মা বাপে ইভেন জাস্ট লাইক বারা গিয়ে আটিয়া হইতা পারেন, নাথিং বিগ, আটিয়াইতা পারেন, দেন ইউ নো তারার হয়তো একটা মনেরও শান্তি পাইলা। অবভিয়াসলি আমরা তো মানুষ, at the end of the day আমরা মেশিন নাই, সো আমরারও ব্রেকর দরকার আছে। আর যারা অটিস্টিক বাচ্চা আসেন একটা মনে রাখুন যেন যে তারা স্পেশাল, তারার ইনো কোনো শরম কিছু নাই, তারার ব্রেইন ইজ জাস্ট ওয়ার্ড ইন এ ডিফারেন্ট ওয়ে। আমরা তারা যেলা চিন্তা করে আমরা ওলা চিন্তা করতাম পারমুনি, আমরা তারার লেভেলে চলতাম পারমুনি, আমরা অ্যাডজাস্টমেন্ট করতাম পারমুনি, বিকজ আমরা যে জায়গাতে আমরা ইমোশনস এন্ড আমরা সারাউন্ডিংস আমরা অ্যাডজাস্টমেন্ট করি, আমরা চলতাম পারি, মেবি আমরা অ্যাডজাস্টমেন্ট করে লিলে তারার লগে হইয়া আমরাও চলতাম পারমু। সো আজকুল লাগি সব বালা থাকুকা, and until next time on Our Voice with Amina, দেখা হইব, and সব বালা থাকুকা, and you'll find Our Voice on Amina with only on Relax Radio Bangla.
সকাল দুপুর সন্ধ্যা রাতে তোমার আমার কথা হবে রিল্যাক্স রেডিও বাংলায়, রিল্যাক্স রেডিও।